I want to welcome you to tonight's episode of Anomalies. I'm Dan Hall, one of your hosts, and with me, of course, is my partner in crime, Dave Jinks. But we are very fortunate to have with us tonight a very special guest, Thiago. And Thiago, say your last name so I don't screw that up. Is it
Ticchetti.
Chichet? What? Say it again, please.
Ticchetti.
Chikechi, okay.
Yeah.
So Tiago, as the reason we're talking with him is that he is in Brazil and is a ufologist who has studied the UFO phenomena in Brazil. And I've always had an interest in a couple of Brazilian cases, and he agreed to talk about those two cases. And he's written a book, and you can talk about your book. So let's start with the the basic question. How did you get interested in UFOs?
Well, basic questions is always the basic answer. Well, I think I was born with ufology in my blood.
Really?
Uh, really, because since I was a kid, when I start to read, I read comic books like Spider-Man, Captain America,
Uh-huh.
X-Men, that, and magazines about UFO. Here in Brazil, we had and still have the Revista UFO magazine, and I start to read it. And today I'm the co-editor of this magazine.
So you went from reading it to editing it, huh?
And
Cool.
now I'm joining the magazine. And my father was a Brazilian Air Force pilot,
Ah, yeah.
and he loved the subject. He never seen nothing during this his duty, but he loved the subject, and he encouraged me very much to get deeper in this matter.
Okay, so it's just kind of a natural thing that came out of your childhood reading about UFOs. Have you ever seen a UFO?
Yes,
You want you
I
want to talk a little
saw.
bit about that?
Yeah, I was 8 years old, uh, and it was in 1982. I live in Rio de Janeiro, and I live in a neighborhood called Barra da Tijuca. Well, we were playing, me and my friends, we were playing, and I saw a red light descending from the sky. And this light stopped and started to hover over a mountain here, there in Rio, that we call Pedra da Gávea. And suddenly, this light disappeared. It's okay, it's a balloon. Oh, let's see. Moments later, this light became reappeared and became bigger and brighter, a very bright red. And this light made this movement, a erratic movement, and then speed away in the sky's direction. Well, I was 8 years old, but I lived most part of my life when I was a kid in Air Force bases. So I saw helicopters and airplanes every single day. So I knew, even I was a child, I knew what was a helicopter, a balloon, or an airplane.
Yeah, you
And
knew that.
I'm sure that that was not.
Yeah, that red light was not the conventional aircraft.
No, no, not at all.
Hmm.
And then when I moved to Brasilia, I was 19 years old, and in a, I started to participate in a group here, a political group here in Brasilia. And then it was 22, 23 years ago, and I started to research ufology.
Uh-huh. So no, you and I share something. I'm a member of MUFON. You are too, as well.
Yeah,
Have Have you ever been a field investigator for MUFON?
yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
have too.
I'm
That's what I
certificate.
do.
I'm certificate. Yeah.
Yeah, and Dave has written a book on UFOs, so we're kind of deep in the subject. Um, Tell us a little bit about your book that you just finished.
Well, this book has more than 500 pages and more than 300 photos and illustrations about UFOs, and cover more than 100 cases in Brazilian ufology. Begins pre-1930s, and I choose the best cases with more evidence and more photos and more information to put in this book. So it begins in pre-1930s and then goes to decades of the 40 decade, 50 decade, and until 2017. And I try to put all the best cases that I know, and many of these cases are unknown in the English language.
Yeah, I bet.
So many of these cases will be a very good surprise to the readers.
Tell us what the name of your book is and how we could purchase it here.
The book is called UFO Contacts in Brazil.
Okay.
You can buy it in a Kindle format or on a paperback format in Amazon.com.
Yeah, Amazon.com.
Right, yeah, Thiago Ticchetti or UFO Contacts in Brazil, and you'll find the book.
Okay, cool. Now, there are a couple of those cases, and like I said, there are probably many more cases that you're familiar with that I am not. Excuse me. But talk about the two cases I'm familiar with that I know a little bit about. Excuse me. Would be the Antonio Villas Boas.
Antonio Villas Boas.
Yeah, the first one of the first abduction cases I ever heard about, and then the other case I'm kind of interested in is the Varginha UFO case. So tell us, what could you tell us about those two cases?
Well, Antonio Villas Boas happened in 1957. Antonio Villas Boas was a farm, and he was working in a farm during the night because during the day it was so hot that practically it was impossible to work. And he was in a tractor in a field, and he saw a star-like light coming and crossing over his head several times, until that this light landed in. He realized that it was not a star; it was a spaceship, and came from that spaceship three entities wearing tight clothes like a diver, with a helmet and tubes linked in their backpacks, and they took forced Antonio Villas Boas inside that UFO, the spaceship, and they put him in a room without nothing, just a clear room, and they took off his clothes, and they started to wash him with a sponge, with oil on it, and they used the sponge, and they put some something in his chin that sucked his blood, a little of his blood, and they left the room. And Antonio noticed that in the room there's a kind of a bed, and suddenly appeared a beautiful woman, blonde and a small woman, but very similar to a human woman.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, he was very afraid, but at the same time, he got very, very excited. He didn't know if it was because the sponge with the oil or the situation, or because that female was naked.
Yeah.
But they had sex for a couple of times, and at the end of the relationship, he asked her where did she come from, and she didn't say nothing. During the sex, she speaks some kind of grooming words that he can understand. And when he asked her where did she come from, she pointed his belly and pointed to the sky. Antonio thought that she was telling that she came from the sky, and they were going to have a baby that's going to be from the sky as well. And then Antonio never, had any other contact like that, or ufological contact. He became a lawyer, and since that day until his death, he claimed that what he saw was real, and for many times he had to repeat his story and never change a word. So I believe that was the first great abduction case, much before then the Hills.
Yeah, Betty and Barney Hill. Mm-hmm.
It was in '65 that got all the notice and got the press. But Antonio Villalobos happened almost 10 years before it.
So is he credible? Is his story credible, Thiago, do you think?
It is.
What makes it credible?
Well, in my opinion, well, of course, I didn't study the case, but I read many papers and books about it. Antonio Villalobos was a very, very simple person. Very simple person. In Brazil, we call a rustic person.
Yeah,
a person that is in inside country of the country. And he never wanted any money, any publicity of that. And he had no reason to lie, to tell something like that. In 1957, in Brazil, UFO was not that subject. Today, you cannot always trust in some kind of report. But back that time, if the person said he was abducted by aliens, at least he's going to be sent to a hospital. Mm-hmm. And he didn't want it. He just told it to his family, and then he told it to closer friends, and then his history got to Brazilian Society of Flying Saucer Research, and they interviewed the Antonio Villalobos and sent to United States and other language countries that could know about the case.
Now, it seems like I saw, of course, it's a YouTube video, so I'm not so sure how accurate it would be, but did he suffer radiation poisoning because of this contact? Did he become ill?
No, this is a Virginia case.
Oh, that's the Virginia case.
Yes, okay. Virginia case. One of the soldiers that captured one of the creatures. Well, let's start Virginia from the beginning.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Virginia happened in 1996, in May of 1996, when a UFO crashed in city of Virginia. It's a city of Minas Gerais state. And four creatures, 2 alive and 2 dead, were captured by the Brazilian army and Brazil in Virginia firefighters. One of these creatures was saw by 3 girls in the landscape. They saw the creature crouched and in a wall. The girls thought it was a devil because the creature was so ugly. It was a brown skin color, had 2 red eyes and like 3 horns in his head, and in the head some kind of a sulfur smell, just like devil. Some people say the devil had some kind of sulfur smell, and the girls run to their house and ask to their mom, and when they return to the place, the creature was not there, but the army and police and the firefighters of the city of Virginia was already run away to capture this creature. As far as we know, the Brazilian Air Force and the Brazilian government and Brazilian Army was warned by NORAD that a flying saucer, that an object just got into atmosphere and gonna hit the Virginia city. Well, so they were prepared. Two Brazilian army soldiers captured one of the creature. One of the soldiers was named Xerez, and he touched the creature without gloves, without any protection. And 2 days later, he touched the creature. He became ill, very, very ill, and he went to a hospital. And then the next day, he was dead. Well, doctors didn't know, until now, they didn't know what happened to him. Because he got a very severe infection, and the misery was so deep that he was buried in a lead coffin. Why? To not contaminate the soil. Well, if it was just an infection, a severe infection, why he would be buried in a leaf coffin?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So the family just got his obituary report last year, almost 25 years later.
Why did that take so long?
We don't know. They had to ask to the judge, a judge of Virginia, they had to go to the law to ask to release this report, and they didn't give an answer that why they kept it for so long. But in the report was said, well, Shiraz was dead because unknown infection that we never know here in Brazil. And the family tried to unbury it and make some exams of the body, but was denied by the law.
So can I cut in here, Thiago? I'm sure you're familiar with the different structures, intelligence agencies, the apparatus in the United States and Brazil. Do you see in your investigations that the structures are similar in terms of secrecy? In this case, the classification systems, maybe, was this classified by the government?
No.
Is there any indication of that? Is why the information was withheld or concealed, or was there just never any determination of what happened?
No, the Brazilian government never gave much attention about ufology, UFO cases. The government, Brazilian government, has a lot of another problems, like political problems, economic problems. That ufology is not one of them. It's not something that they will concern about. That's so true that we send to United States the UFO crash in Virginia and the 4 aliens. We know that because a week later of the event, a huge airplane from the United States landed in Virginia Airport. The Virginia Airport is a very small airport. And on board of this airplane was militaries from the United States and personnel from NASA.
So is it probable?
And we know
that the U.S. is a proxy, or Brazil and other maybe smaller nations without as many resources have outsourced to the United States. And that influence from the U.S. seems to at least in my, investigations, obviously, it doesn't take long before you realize how influential the United States is in the UFO phenomenon. So there is evidence that the UFO stepped in early in this case, as they frequently do.
Yeah. And the coincidence, I'd say, the coincidence is that after we gave the UFO crash and the entities, sometime later, the first Brazilian astronaut went to the space by invitation of the U.S. government.
Mm-hmm.
So we exchange a UFO and 4 bodies of aliens for a ticket to ride to space.
What a deal!
Yeah, what a deal! What a very
well. Let me. I know we could talk for 6 hours, I'm sure. I just wanted to bring up one other case that I'm interested in personally. Linda Moulton Howe has done a pretty extensive analysis and description of the let me see, Felipe Branco. Or no, that's the business. It's Randhir Olivieri.
Randhir Olivieri.
Yes. Can you talk about that case?
Well, what I'm going to say is not good, because Randhir is a charlatan.
Okay.
He's a very, very dangerous person that treat the people that tells that he was stealing something from people, and they did. He was arrested several years ago by charlatanism.
Mm-hmm.
For Quakery, and well, I don't know why Linda got this subject, because here in Brazil, Randhir is not a very good person seen by ufology.
He's not credible.
He never contributed with nothing, and when he started in ufology, in his private, in his propriety in Mato Grosso do Sul, back in the 90s, he used laser points, pens with laser points, to fake alien probes in trees, in rocks, in the sky. So he is not a very reliable person.
And he alleged or claimed to have been abducted himself, right?
It's a lie.
He claimed.
Yeah, he claimed, but it's a lie. I know a very famous photo that he of a sheet that was burning, like a person laid it and burning in a surrounded the person. He's a great liar. We don't have to give me any kind of publicity, and I'm not saying that because I'm jealous about him. No, I'm not. I don't care. I really don't care what to say. But he's faking things to make people give him money.
It was a rather elaborate fake too. It looks like, with the burned bed sheets, as you mentioned, and then the burn marks in the ceiling, and the story that goes with it.
All made up.
I read that a number of years ago and never heard any follow-up. But your opinion, your conclusion is that it was a hoax and not worth.
It's a hoax. Yeah, it is. Yeah. Everything's a hoax. Sometime later, some years ago, he made a video when he was claiming that he had contact with an alien named Bilu. Bilu. Name of the alien was Bilu. 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 And one of the TV network here in Brazil went there to film this ET because he told that the ET going to be there to be interviewed by this TV crew. And this TV crew, the interview should be at night with no lights. The thing that, began strange. Interview in the middle of the wood with no lights. Okay. But this crew brought natural vision camera, night vision camera.
Mm-hmm.
And when they start to film, Randhir was wearing a glass with two lights in a corner of the glasses, and he was singing with a child voice to pretend to be an alien.
Mm-hmm.
And but the crew saw it because he was using a night vision camera.
Okay.
And he was covered in a jacket and used a glass with lights in the side of the glasses. So how can you trust in a person like that?
Well, true. And as you well know, this is a very complicated and frequently a baffling phenomenon that sometimes doesn't seem to make sense. Do you have cases that you've looked at where it appears that there's a legitimate interaction with the witness, but he, as in this case, does something to participates in a hoax or goes crazy in some way, so that it really even further complicates the situation, where you have a genuine contact maybe, or some genuine witness of something unusual, and then it's immediately corrupted or complicated that way. And I see you nodding your head. You know what I'm talking about, how complicated it can be. And what do you attribute that complication to? Do you attribute it to intentional misinformation sometimes by, say, the U.S. government or intelligence apparatus? Or is it something more fundamental that's in the consciousness that humans just can't handle, these kinds of observations?
No, there's a lot of cases that the beginning was genuine. A lot of cases. One of the I have one in my book, the Quran abduction.
Mm-hmm.
That they both they were a couple was abducted several times, and when this abduction is stopped, they began to fake information, to fake abductions, to trying to stay in the lights. I mean, they trying to perpetuate their 15 minutes of fame.
Mm-hmm. Right.
This is very common, very common. If the people want to get some advantage of his experience, this is the way they will go. Right. I'm not saying that Randhir had some real case. I don't think so. I think he was a liar from the beginning. But the current case that in my book, they start with their genuine abduction, and they were abduction for four or five times. And then when the abduction stopped, they lost all the publicity. They lost all the lights on them.
Right.
They got divorced as well. And each one trying to keep the fame. So it's very, very normal. Unfortunately, it's very normal.
And it really does complicate the job of investigators, researchers, trying to keep everything straight. That's what I find about this is so frustrating. But also I mentioned the other aspect, and that is potentially, well, we know for sure this happens in certain cases where the misinformation, the disinformation of particularly the U.S., but I think it goes on in Europe, where intelligence agencies, there's so many of them in the U.S. alone. I think we have 18 different intelligence agencies whose job is to deceive. I mean, that's their job, and so they step in sometimes. What is your opinion on how influential those entities are in this subject?
Very, very big, very big.
And it's mostly the United States, I would think. Who else do you see as playing a very big role in the misinformation?
Well, nowadays, I think the United States is the biggest place that the agencies do it. I don't see Europe like, well, United Kingdom or France, maybe, but the rest of the world,
Right.
Russia, maybe Russia or China, they're big. They're great, big countries with very potential armies. They do it to keep the secret and to keep the people aware that if they say something that the government don't agree, there will be consequences. And the agents are there to confuse the media, to confuse the witnesses, the threat, the witnesses, and to make the witness like a jerk in front of everybody. So if you have some kind of experience, why do you go to the TV or get publicity if the agents comes to you and gonna target you as a jerk or a lunatic? So it's very complicated.
Yes.
What about, I guess this is related to UFOs, although I guess there's a disagreement about what the cause is. What about cattle mutilations or animal mutilations in Brazil? Is that something that's common, or is that, have you ever run across any of those cases in your investigations?
We never had any case of animal mutilation in Brazil. Like cows or horses. We had some case of allegedly chupacabras.
Oh, chupacabras, yeah.
Yes, in the beginning of the 2000, and stop it. And I investigate one of these cases. I investigate one of them. It's very curious because you can find what cause of the cause of the death of this in my case of duckies. But in Brazil we don't have cattle mutilation. We last year we had a lot of cattle mutilation in Argentina, in Rosario, in Buenos Aires, in Santa Fe. We had many cases of that. But in Brazil, amazingly, we didn't have any cases. I don't know why. I really don't know why, because Brazil, as you're gonna see in my book, Brazil has all types of UFO subject. You have abduction, we have contact, we have sightings, we have crash, we have everything. But we don't have any case that, as far as I know, about cattle mutilation.
What are your theories? And I guess they just have to be theories because we don't know the answer for sure. What are your theories about where UFOs come from? And maybe there's no one destination. Maybe there could be time travelers. They could be any. So what do you think about that?
Well, we have a full of theories. This is my 11th book. One of my other books was about alien typology, and I made a research of 8 years about of reports and witnesses and cases, and I found it that at least we had 72 types of different aliens.
Really?
Recorded in our reports during all the years, during our history. Why? But in none of in none of any of cases I found the origin of these aliens. No one knows where they come from. Maybe they are us from future. Maybe they are from under sea, under Earth. I don't know. My opinion, I think they come from another planet. They have some kind of technology that they can be able to travel in space. I think that this is the most simple theory about the aliens visitors. But there's a lot of theories. I think that they came from another planet, several other planets, because we had, at least in my research, at least 70 types of aliens, very different between them, because we in our planet we are different. Well, Asian is different from Africans, different from South America, but we're the same: 2 legs, 2 arms, 2 eyes. So we have the same body construction, and these 72 types of aliens, they are very different from each other. So if you want a very, let's say, very base, they are from different 72 planets.
But they do generally share characteristics of humans, right? I mean, you're talking about insectoid. Yes, they're insect-like, but you don't see creatures with 6 legs or 8 legs or 8 eyes very much. I know there's some reports, but in general they're very humanoid, which does suggest a set of assumptions you could make, in that somehow we're related. If you're stuck in the physical reality, as soon as you allow for a different realm, potentially that they travel through, and if they live in the realm of consciousness or what, shape shifting, all of that, you could be whatever shape you want. So I mean, that opens up a bunch of different possibilities.
Yeah.
General, the 72
you have to keep your mind open.
The 72 types are mostly humanoid, I would think. You don't have slimes, you don't have, elephants or whatever.
No, you do have slime. You do have types of 6 legs, but the most of them, of course, the most they are like us. Like us, I mean, for 2 arms, 2 legs. Some have 4 fingers, 3 fingers, 5 fingers. Some have 1 eye, 3 eyes. Well, but the structure is basically the same.
Overwhelmingly, they're humanoid, at least from what I've read. And so, do you focus on, there's a whole spectrum of close encounters. Do you focus on the close encounters of the 4th kind, of the 5th kind in your research for the most part? I know when I wrote my book, I'll admit it, I was very hesitant to go into the close encounters of the 4th and 5th kind, because that opens a whole new realm. Again, like I said, consciousness, time travel, entity, beings who are supreme or powerful. I wanted to stick with nuts and bolts, metal saucers and whatever we used to believe up until maybe the 60s or 70s in general, and then we started to consider some of these other realms or these other possibilities. Do you focus on any particular area of that spectrum today?
To write my book, the typology of aliens, my focus was the 4th and 5th kinds of contacts, of course. Because I must have the most detailed possible to describe the creature, to describe the details, and then divide and catalog any kind of these beings. To write the book UFO Contacts in Brazil, my focus was the best cases that we had in Brazilian UFO literature, and references to bring all the informations to the English language. But as I said, you wrote a book as well. To know what was or how looks like these aliens, and it was terrifying as well. You had to research 40, 50 kind of encounters. It was terrifying. Sometimes I had to write late at night, so I was alone in my office reading that, looking back all the time.
Yeah.
And that is a perfect example of why it seems so abhorrent is the word that comes to mind. It is so scary because if any of these reports are true, and I think the three of us believe with all of our hearts that they are, many of them are, then you have to admit that humans are much further down the evolutionary chain, or this cosmic ladder. We're several rungs down from these beings, at least in a lot of different aspects. But why are they so interested in us, or are they interested in us? Do we just perceive that to be true, or do humans at least have some aspect that is very desirable to these other beings? Or are we just a zoo and it's a curiosity to other intelligences?
Well, this is a million answer. It's difficult to know, to tell you. Sometimes I say that we are like lab rats, and people doesn't like it, but it's true. It's true. They are not here to destroy us, in my opinion, because they would do it if they wanted.
Yeah, we probably would have been destroyed quite a while ago.
Yeah, they are not here to save us. No. Because if they would do it, they're going to give us the cure of AIDS, cancer, natural disaster. They're going to warn us. Well, I think they are here to study us, of some type of study analysis, or just to know a different planets of them. Because to write that book about the UFO alien typology, a lot of type of aliens was just appeared in some period of time. They are not reported anymore. For example, the beings that was reported in Venezuela in 1952, they were hairy, small, stronger, and they fought with a truck driver in Venezuela. They were reported only in 1952 to 1954 and never reported again. What we have now is the grays. The grays are all in all places, and the insectoids. And some people say that the lizards, they are here, but we don't see like a flatwood monster. It was never reported before again after that case. And we have a lot of cases of that.
That's a strange looking creature, the flatwood monsters case. I teach a UFO class, and I've used that creature as an example of something that people have experienced. I was going to ask you one other question. Are you familiar with the concept of Sasquatch or Bigfoot?
Yeah.
Is there anything like that, any creature like that ever reported in Brazil?
Well, we have in a Brazilian folklore.
Yeah.
We have in a Brazilian folklore. Yeah, being named Curupira. He lives in the woods. He protects the animals in the woods. He was very hairy. He's not bigger and larger as a Sasquatch. But he looks like an animal as well. And many people said in the folklore that the Curupira always appear after they saw a bright light in the sky. So we can have some connection here. I'm not saying that the Curupira is the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot, but we can relate it the curupira of this strange light, all the Brazilian folklore. If you study it very deeply, you can make this link with ufology.
In my MUFON Field Investigators Handbook, they have different kinds of entities listed, and one of those entities looks a hell of a lot like a Sasquatch. So there's that connection you're talking about between UFOs and Sasquatches. So how are we doing for time here? Are we doing okay for time with you? Do you need to?
To me, it's okay.
Okay, it's okay.
Well, he's got about 5 to 10 minutes, I think it sounds like.
Okay.
In order to not be late, so
let's wait. My wife yell at me.
We've had wives. We don't want them yelling at you. What else? So, one question: we interviewed a lady from France, Marie Muller, and she's had multiple contacts throughout her life. She's seen UFOs. She's an experiencer. And one of the things she said that I thought was kind of interesting, she said in France, the culture is such so that you can't really talk about UFOs. She doesn't have anybody to talk about her experiences with. So in Brazil, culturally, how are people treated? How is the topic of ufology treated? And also, how do people, if they have strange experiences, do they have support groups that they can go talk about those experiences?
Yeah, well, Brazil is a multicultural country. We have people from all over the world. We were made by people from all over the world. To talk about ufology here is not a trouble. You can talk. Many gonna believe in you and agree with you is most important. Of course, you're gonna have a person that's gonna say that you're crazy, but that's not majority. And but the subject never was taken so very serious. The last thing that was treated or published in TV here in Brazil about ufology was the Tic Tac and Nimitz.
Right.
That happened in the United States. That was the last time that we had a big TV network, television, telling something about UFO. Besides that, you can talk freely with anyone. There's no problem. We have support groups. As MUFON, I'm part of MUFON, of course. We have a support group with MUFON. And we have also support group of Brazilian Commission of Ufologists. I'm president of CBU, Brazilian Commission of Ufologists. And we have professionals, medical doctors that help people that claim to be abducted and claim to have some implants under the skin, or people that just want to get an answer of their question, of their experience. Mm-hmm. So we do have, but Brazil is so big. Of course, the United States is bigger than Brazil, but Brazil is so big. But Brazil doesn't have the advanced communication that the United States have. And except you can live in the middle of Arizona, New Mexico, you're gonna have internet. You're gonna have the minimum to communicate. We have in Brazil, in the north of Brazil, in a inside country of Brazil, there are places there's no light. Mm-hmm. They use fireplaces. They use candles. And in that places, we have huge numbers of sightings. Huge numbers of sightings. And that became so common that people doesn't bother anymore. They see a flying disc in the sky, but it's okay. I saw it yesterday. I saw it last week. I'm going to see it tomorrow. They will not report.
It's no big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
So
It's normal to them.
Thiago,
So
does
sorry.
that imply to you then that these aliens, for lack of a better word, these intelligences, that they prefer to still operate in isolated areas in the dark, so to speak, well, literally, sometimes usually in the dark? Is that a part of a selective exposure program still that seems to have been going on for a century or more? Is that kind of how these aliens work still?
Yeah, I'm sure that they don't want to appear. If they do, they're gonna land in a garden of the White House. They don't want to be seen.
And what does that imply? Sure. What does that imply to you about their intentions? Understanding, of course, that there may be several races with different intentions, but this particular one who's doing selective contact, what does that imply to you about their motivation?
Well, they come to our planet to do what they have to do and leave. We had in 1977 in Brazil an invasion. It was an invasion, and in my books call it the Plate Operation, Operação Prato. From November to 1977 to January of 1978, several cities of north of Brazil, like Colares, like Belém, like some of very remote cities, they were attacked by lights in the sky. That light shot in the residents of the cities, kind of laser beam that sucked their blood. Their blood. Many of these people went to the hospital, and the doctor in the hospital, there was only one doctor, a female, Veslaide was her name. And she saw that the person that was attacked by that light had anemia. They lost blood cells. So what those aliens want to do, we don't know. The episode was so critical. Many cities turned like ghost cities because the people left the city.
Really?
And and the mayor of the cities asked the Brazilian force to send a crew to investigate it because it's something in the air. They didn't know that it was a plane or a helicopter or what else. And the Brazilian Air Force sent a crew headed by, back at the time, Captain Holanda. And they start to investigate all the cases and investigate and the witnesses. And they took more than 200 of photos of UFOs. They filmed more than 25 hours of UFOs in the sky. They filmed it in 8mm camera. And they had more than 5,000 of reports.
Right.
And in one event, Captain Holanda stood just 10 meters of an alien being. Almost touched the alien being. He was a captain of Brazilian Air Force, and it was that episode was witnessed by other 4 militaries. So, what they are here, what they did that, we don't know. When Captain Holanda, had got back to the headquarters of the Air Force in Pará State, his officer, his commander, told him that, well, the investigation is closed. I said, well, but now we got almost in contact with them. We have a lot of proofs. And he said, well, it's an order, superior order. We have to quit all the investigation. Years later, we knew, we got knowledge that after Brazil stopped the investigation, the United States came to Brazil and began his own investigation that got from 78 to 82. They were in our forest, rainforest in Amazonia, in Pará, investigation the chupa-chupa phenomenon. So why they are here? We don't know. I don't know why they are here. I don't think they want to conquer us or destroy us or save us. They are here for their own agenda, and we still don't know what is it.
Well, isn't it amazing that such a widespread and ongoing encounter like the one you just described can somehow not can be held secret? Because Dan and I hadn't heard of that.
No, I hadn't either.
I may have read in passing that there was a flap or a wave in Brazil in 1977, whatever the dates were. But
Bob Pratt wrote a book about it. Bob Pratt.
Yeah.
UFO danger zone in Brazil.
And you've given me lots of books, including your own library of books that I'm going to add to my personal library I'm going to get on Amazon and get some books. But the fact that we have to go find a book to read about it, isn't that sort of mind-boggling? And that reminds me of the case in Zimbabwe, the aerial
school, right?
That's coming up hopefully in the next couple of months, I believe. I'm really looking forward to that documentary. But when you have multiple witnesses, dozens, or in this case, it sounds like hundreds or thousands, and you have all this activity and all these, these bunches of evidence, the fact that it stays secret or mostly secret is really kind of mind-boggling. But, thanks to people like Thiago and the other, people in this UFO investigative community, maybe, we are uncovering some of these things and making it more, more available to the average person when and if they stumble upon this topic. And I think some of us are just born with that interest, as Thiago mentioned at the very beginning, is that you're either drawn to it or you're not. I don't know why. That's one thing that Dan and I have asked almost every guest is, why were you drawn to this? And, the converse is, why are people not drawn to it? That's another mystery. And I haven't found the answer, but some of us are. And so we appreciate your efforts, definitely. I'm sure I speak for Dan on that point.
Yes, thank you for being with us today. Your book on the alien typologies, is there an English language version of that?
No, it's in Portuguese, but I'm trying to make Philip Mantle to publish in English.
Yeah, Philip Mantle, he would be good. Well, thank you, Thiago, very much for being our guest today. We'll use your book title, UFO Contacts in Brazil. We'll post our conversation with you on YouTube, and that will be the cover for that conversation, your book. So thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you very much, you guys, and hope you can talk more later.
Yeah,
that would be great. I would look forward to that. We could, like I said, we could probably kill 5 or 6 hours because Thiago is a wealth of
let's do it.
Okay, let's do it.
That's guy.
Good. All right. Well, good luck with your wife there. So we'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, fellas.